The next couple of months are going to be key when it comes to your crypto portfolio. This video, I'm going to talk about all the different ways the Bitcoin price could play out until the halving, which is around April time this year, 2024. I'm going to explain exactly what you need to do to be positioned for any scenario. The Bitcoin price at the moment we've seen on the charts is around 43,000. Kind of stable, going sideways. We had the big kind of pump up just before Bitcoin ETF news and a day after. And then we had the kind of crash back down to 38,500 or so. And we've actually come off the lows quite strong. So where do we go from here? And what does this mean for a couple of months' time, all the way into April? I'm going to show you some really interesting charts. And we're going to have a look at what's happened every single time before when we've seen a halving in terms of the Bitcoin price running up to it. But we're also going to talk about the NASDAQ, we're going to talk about altcoins as well, and kind of piece this all together. So where should we start? I think the best place to start actually is the NASDAQ. Now this is the basket of tech stocks in the US, and generally it's regarded as a risk asset almost. Much like cryptocurrency, it moves very, very similar. So when we get a massive rally in the NASDAQ, we tend to see the same in Bitcoin and a lot of the major altcoins as well. And you can see at the moment, the chart is looking very, very strong. And at nearly the exact time that a lot of the altcoins started pumping, around the 25th of October, we saw a massive rally in NASDAQ all the way from the high 13s all the way up to the high 17,000 figure. What I think is going to happen here, because we had the FOMC meeting recently where they decided to keep interest rates the same. So interest rates are stable and sideways. And I mentioned this in my videos before. A lot of cryptocurrency and stock market is running on buy the rumor, sell the news. So what likely would happen, the best thing that could have happened was, believe it or not, them keeping interest rates stable, not reducing it. You'd think logically, if they start reducing interest rates and we go back to near 0% and they start printing money to oblivion, it's good for cryptocurrency. Yes, it kind of is. But in terms of the actual anticipation of this fact, and in terms of when this all fizzles down to people actually randomly aping into lots of different types of cryptocurrency, there is a massive lag there. So the anticipation here is really we're rallying on them reducing interest rates at some point, which will likely be later this year. So we're rallying on that news the same way we rallied on Bitcoin ETF is coming. And then when the interest rates actually get cut and pivot, I'm of the opinion, a lot of other people believe this too, not everybody, but some people do, that when they actually pivot, that might be a sign of a top in the market, because it will be the opposite of what most people think. And to be honest, that's what's been going on in the markets last few years. Remember when COVID came around, everyone thought the markets would crash further. I even thought the markets would be hit further than the amount they crashed. But no, it was the literal opposite. It was one of the best buying opportunities. So you don't want to be on the wrong side of these things too often. Now, none of this is obviously guaranteed, but this is what seems to be happening. And if you look at market movements recently, that's what seems to be going on. So with Bitcoin, it could potentially be the same. While interest rates stay stable and everything kind of, it's like when Bitcoin price is stable and sideways, what happens to altcoins? A lot of them tend to rally. It's only when Bitcoin's crashing down that the altcoins crash down even more. So we don't want to see that. So let's discuss the potential scenarios in how the Bitcoin price from today could play out. And I want to show you some really interesting charts here. Is this one, and credit to Plan B for this particular chart. But what it's showing is how many people, any given time, all the way back from 2010, how many people, what percentage are in profit when it comes to their Bitcoin trade. And what did we notice in the last few cycles just before halving? We noticed that the dots kind of change color. They went from blue to then green, yellow, orange, and then slowly red, like deep red, when we saw the massive rally in the price of Bitcoin. And likely what we could say this time is the same. We're seeing the color changing again quite clearly there. In the last few months, we're seeing the color change from blue to yellow to amber orange now. So we could be very, very close to a massive rally. Now, the thing is, none of this is guaranteed. We're talking about trading and investing here. But the likelihood of this happening is a lot higher because history does repeat itself. Not every cycle will be exactly the same. The highs, the lows, the percentage gains, this will all change. The altcoins that are popular this time compared to before, this will all change. But very likely, we're going to see the same thing happen again. In terms of fundamental reasons, it makes sense. But also in terms of the general market sentiment and mass psychology, it might make sense as well. If interest rates stay stable, they're too nervous about cutting right now for the next few months, so everything is good from that point of view. The Fed are not going to do anything too crazy. And assuming we don't have any other massive black swan event, so assuming that too, you'd expect stock market to slowly keep rallying up, but cryptocurrency to be going a lot further, because that's happened every other time before. This is a chart from Plan B again of the RSI, and we're seeing the same thing. At the moment, the RSI is sitting around the 55, 60, just above 60 mark. And what happens just before halving and then shortly afterwards, we see it rally massively all the way up to oversold levels. Now, we could be seeing the same again. However, the last couple of times, there was a little bit of a pullback. So that may still happen, and we'll discuss the different scenarios in just a minute. Finally, another little change, which again, we only kind of see when Bitcoin's about to start rallying really hard, is when you see the Bitcoin price cross over the lines of realized price, 2-year and 5-month realized as well. And it's kind of sitting on top of that now. Now, if we see these lines start to curve upwards, which is quite possible, then yeah, we could say that we might be on our way. Because at the moment, Bitcoin price is stable, it's recovered a lot, but we don't know for 100% sure. So when we have a look at the Bitcoin chart, what are the potential things that could happen? Well, in terms of market structure, these are things that could happen. First of all, we saw the low. This was a very short, sharp correction that literally only lasted kind of 10 days or so, and then that's it. That's the end of it. Now, the move off is looking quite impulsive. So you would assume that this could at minimum get some follow through. But what are the different scenarios? One is we've seen the lows. So what might happen there is we move up, we get a little pullback, which we may have already seen, or a little bit of a larger pullback, trend line here, and then we keep going. But the way we might move up off the lows could be very similar to what we saw here. You see this from October to November, where we only moved in price from 33,000 to 37,000. So it wasn't much in terms of movement. But how did price move? It kind of slowly grinded up. So what if we see the same? Slowly grind up in terms of price towards halving, and shortly after, maybe we get a little dip just after halving, a little sell the news, something like that. And then we really, really take off and rally with Bitcoin. The good thing for altcoins is, as I've mentioned before, when Bitcoin goes sideways or just grinds up, what happens with altcoins? Well, what happened this time with altcoins during October and November? A lot of them were absolutely pumping really hard, especially in certain sectors. So that could absolutely happen again. And I care more about the altcoins, not Bitcoin, because that's where I do a lot of my investing. And to be honest, I recommend a lot of you do too, because that's where you get the most return on your investment. Again, obviously not financial advice, but that's something for you to think about. What are the other scenarios? The other scenario is this is all a pullback, so it's not actually impulsive. So maybe it's a short, sharp correction, or the correction just has a little bit more to go, just break the highs, and then we've got a downtrend forming here, and we just get a follow through of this first move. Probably short, but could be a little bit deeper, and we get back here to these levels around 35,000. Absolutely possible. Now, what does that mean for altcoins? Well, yeah, we'll definitely get a dump in altcoins, and it could be not a pretty one, but we might, if it does happen, I think it'll be very short, sharp V-shaped recovery. And if it does happen, I'm going to be all over this move at the lows if it does happen, because that will be the best buying opportunity ever if we aren't in that best opportunity already after this nice dump we've had across the altcoins. The only other scenario I see here is basically a much larger correction. So this is part of this is an A, and it's part of another B and C. So actually we're forming a larger flat, which kind of means we're sideways, which is not the worst thing in the world for altcoins. It just means we're going to be fluctuating in price massively, which is kind of annoying for a while. And then when we get this C wave low, which will be around the same levels, around 40,000, which means basically we go back to 48, then drop back down in an annoying way, whipsaw everybody out, get everybody really confused, and then in April we run. Now, there's no way to predict exactly which one's going to happen, and I don't claim to know exactly what's going to happen. What I do know, and I think with higher probability, is we're going to get price messing about within ranges. Altcoins will do well during this time, but then just after halving, that's when Bitcoin takes off, everything really takes off. And you might get a period where Bitcoin outperforms altcoins, obviously, it happens all the time, but then altcoins will follow for their next waves. And those could be crazy, judging by history. Now, for this all to hold together, like I said, can't have a black swan, can't have them messing around with interest rates too much, and need the stock market also to continue to rally in such a crazy way that nobody expects it. Everybody just keeps calling tops and it just melts faces. That's what we need to happen. And I think there's a good chance it could happen this year. Absolutely good chance it could happen. And when do we see the high in Bitcoin? Nobody knows. But, it could be a really early high. It could be as early as September, October this year. We see a top and that's the end of it. And it's just a short, sharp cycle that kind of started a little bit earlier last year and kind of ends early as well. So what else do we need to know? Well, altcoins, what are the main ones I always discuss is Solana and AVAX. Today, let's concentrate on AVAX. And what do we see on the AVAX chart here that could give us some clues? Because these bigger altcoins, they will give you clues. We've seen a massive trend line here. Move off the lows, same way Bitcoin moved. Looks okay. It's a little bit sketchy in my opinion. It's definitely not a very clear looking impulse. And why does that matter? Well, any new move, any fresh move of any low, for example, we had a correction here and then we had a fresh move on the 28th of November and it was a very impulsive move. That first initial part of it, all of these initial parts, they need to be impulsive. They need to either be triangles impulsive or just a 5-wave move off the lows, very, very impulsive. It has to be nice and clear. This one is a bit sketch. So I'll just be honest with you. So what I'm looking for now is a bit of a pump at the start of the week where people get a little bit excited and we break a few trend lines. And then I want to know if this is a fake out. So all of this move is just the same as these ones and it was just a little 3-wave rubbish fake out and then we get another dump back to the lows. And well, it will be further than the lows. Maybe we break it a little bit or a lot. I want to know if that happens or if we hold, this was indeed the low that's already in AVAX, which means a lot of the altcoins will be pumping from now. And we move forward from here. Get over, retest, get a bit of a support, maybe sideways, bit of volatility for a while, but we slowly start pushing up levels. Next level, then this level. And then I think it's looking extremely bullish then from there. And then it's going to be hard to stay in touch with the market because what happens in bull markets with altcoins, if you're not familiar or you've not experienced the cycles before, it's crazy. Just every day is just 5-10% up, 5-10% up, 5-10% up. Yes, we'll get pullbacks along the way, but they won't be anywhere near as big as the moves we have up. So it's a very exciting time. And I think you should watch very closely the next week or two. Obviously, I'll be trying my best to keep everybody updated. So what if offloads the AVAX move? It was corrective. What does that mean now? If it is, and if this isn't a 5-wave legit swing, which like I said, I'm a little bit suspicious about it, it's quite simple. So basically you run a fib. So first of all, what you do is you run the fib retracement levels off this move up to this first high we saw around just over 37. And we saw a pullback to 0.5, which is fine. But if it's a larger pullback, and this next move was a little bit corrective and we move back to the 0.5 and we hold there, that's fine. And then 618, I would say as an absolute maximum 31. You'd want price to hold here if we did see a dip and then move up and then we're good to go. Now, if this is already a 1 and a 2 and this is a second 1 and a 2, well, then let's just zoom in. And then the levels we're looking at here, we basically run the same thing, a fib of this recent move up to this high just over the trend line. And we can see we're already at the 0.5, but we want to hold the 0.618. If we don't, then yeah, we'll have a larger dump down and then we just have to wait and see if it's all corrective and then if we see a bounce. So I'm watching AVAX and Solana very carefully. And Solana is the same thing. I'm a little bit suspicious about the move off the low. So I'm just watching it very carefully, to be honest. And once that's clarified with both of these massive altcoins, I think it will be a lot clearer. Because remember, sir, a couple of altcoins are rallying right now. SUI and Tau, which I've mentioned before in my videos, they just don't even know that there's any correction right now. But that's not the majority. I look at what the majority of altcoins are doing and Bitcoin to kind of get a general gauge of where the direction is at the moment in the market. Watch for narratives as well. Everybody's talking about AI and stuff, which is completely understandable. I've mentioned it many times on my channel over the past few months, but be careful. Right now, the All altcoins, the AI ones, are not doing well at all. They're experiencing a lot of correction. Yes, they'll have their next move soon, but don't be too hasty with it. It might not be the narrative. Remember, everything moves in kind of cycles where you get one sector going, then the next one will go, and then another one will go, and then the AI ones go. Usually the AI ones actually kind of go a little bit earlier and first, but maybe not this time. Like FET is looking horrible. And this move, I was tracking this all the way along, and it was actually a nice short here off this trend line, and it's looking weak. It looks like it definitely has to break this. You need price always to reset first before it starts a new impulsive move, and this needs resetting really badly. And I don't know how low it will drop. Maybe we'll get back to those December lows, which are about 46 and stuff, before we get started. Who knows? So a couple of the altcoins not looking good. I'm going to discuss a lot of the older altcoins we saw in the last bull market in another video. Thanks for listening.